The NFL cannot disrespect our country. I saw this a year ago with Kaepernick, and I said, this is a terrible thing. The NFL's in a box. They have to do something about it. I think they're afraid of their players, you want to know the truth. And I think it's disgraceful.
Attacking San Juan's mayor as she begged for help wasn't the only jaw-dropping moment from Donald Trump this week. He also repeatedly called for professional athletes engaged in peaceful dissent to be fired, prompting widespread protests and statements from NFL players and even some owners. A new poll shows that Americans are split on the anthem protests. 49% say the protesting players are doing the wrong thing to express their political opinion when they kneel during the national anthem, while 43% say it is right. But 60% agree that Trump was wrong to criticize those athletes for protesting. And joining me now, Pam Oliver, Fox's NFL senior correspondent, and former NFL coach Ray Sherman. And back with me are Jason Johnson and Kaiten Dawson. Pam, it's really a treat to talk to you. I want to talk to you for quite a long time, so I'm going to go to you first on this. A couple of interesting things happened this week. Obviously, you had the NFL attacked, or the president pressuring the NFL to change its policy and require players to stand during the anthem. And then at the same time, you seem to have this coordinated effort by teams to shift the protests away from what Colin Kaepernick was doing and toward this other sort of performance of patriotism where they all link arms. In your reporting, was that as coordinated as it looked?
I think with some teams it was very coordinated. They spent, in some cases, hours before the game trying to discuss what it is they would do. Other teams just decided maybe the day of what they would do. I'm here in London where the New Orleans Saints will be playing the Miami Dolphins, and the Saints have already decided that they will kneel and then lock arms during the protest, during the anthem, so they're not anticipating that they will actually be kneeling during the national anthem. The Dolphins have not decided as of yet what they will do, but they will do something. We've got 12 regular season games after tomorrow, 12 regular season games coming up, and I predict that this movement of unity, as they're calling it, will last throughout the regular season because these remarks were so egregious and it got under the skin of so many people. I do not think that the owners are afraid of their players. I think they're in this together, and I think Mr. Trump is the one on the outside looking in.
And Pam, but if they're not afraid of the players, do they feel a sense of intimidation from the President of the United States? And I only say that they do not. You don't think they're intimidated by him at all?
No, not at all. I feel there were some supporters of Mr. Trump during his inauguration, and a bunch of owners gave millions of dollars here and there, but they're not going to be browbeaten by the president. I don't think they look at this as, well, why should we be afraid of him? He's the president of the United States who doesn't always act like the president of the United States. These are billionaire owners of the NFL teams, and I don't think they feel inferior. They don't feel afraid. They don't feel that this is somebody I need to be worried about, because ultimately, how does this affect my bottom line?
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Trump has asked people to boycott, but something, Joe, I've got to tell you, when I was in Tennessee last week, and neither team came out on the field. The Seahawks didn't come out, nor did the Tennessee Titans come out. So there were boos from the fans, but the minute that ball was kicked off, they were just as rabid as fans as you would expect. So it's like how quickly they forget when, everybody's booing, but at the same time, when the game started, they were going crazy, as they always would.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ray Sherman, you've worked on several of these teams as an assistant coach. You've been on that line, and I'm wondering, how much you think this sort of political conversation does affect the teams and the players. New polling from CNN shows that 49% of those polled say that pro sports leagues should require athletes to stand during the national anthem. 47% say they should not, but 60% say that the protests, which are against police brutality, let's just remember, they're not against the national anthem or the flag, they're against police brutality, that they're effective. How much do you think that actually impacts the players on the field when they're seeing this whole controversy swirl around them, Ray?
Well, I think, first of all, your First Amendment right is you have the right to free speech, freedom of press, and the right to assemble in a peaceful manner. And for me, I think, and being in all these various locker rooms, these players, first of all, Joy, you have a lot that you have to go through and get prepared for a ball game. And there's a lot going through these young men's minds. And when you have to go through a situation like this really kind of throw things off a little bit for them, because when you have to go against an opponent, you want to make sure that you're in your right frame of mind so you can go out and focus on doing your job. And for me, as far as a young man taking a knee, I think that's a sign of respect, because as a coach, as a player, as a team, and I have the opportunity to coach in this league a long time, before a ball game, you take a knee and you pray before you go out on the field. After the game, both teams come together at the center of the field and players kneel and pray. You take a knee as respect. If a player is down and or injured, you take a knee as a sign of respect. And then when you go into the locker room after the ball game, the head coach gives his speech to the team, and then you take a knee and pray afterwards. So to me, I think it's your right to do it as long as you do it in a peaceful manner, and I don't see anything wrong with it.
And Jason, you know, I'm wondering, curious what you make of the fact that these protests were in fact shifted and seem to be coordinated to then do the kneeling before the anthem, but still stand up during it. What did you make of that?
You know, this whole thing, it's like every single NFL player now is learning about public relations, because they're wrestling to get this narrative back to what it was supposed to be. You know, the Saints saying we're going to kneel before and say, I don't want Simon Says before the game. And to be honest, I've always thought that the locking arms is ridiculous. I don't want unity. Let's make this clear. No one's asking for unity. People are asking for accountability, and they're asking for justice. And unity is this wonderful panacea that some of these NFL owners want to put over this whole conversation so they can avoid the fact that you have a league that is primarily made up of African-American men, many of whom have been victims of, even as players, the kind of police brutality and discrimination that people are talking about. But I will say this, Joy, that it's also interesting to see how different teams deal with this issue. I am a Seahawks fan. The Seahawks are one of the few teams that actually talked about police brutality in their statement. You've got the Denver Broncos, where John Elway, who is a right-wing conservative Republican, he's told his team, if you do anything, you'll be fired. So we're going to see different responses from every team throughout the year. I don't think they're going to be unified in how they react to this going forward.
Yeah, and you know, Caden, you also have a league that is primarily made up of black players, but the ownership of these leagues is very, very conservative and very Republican. Just looking at their donations, a little over $6 million donated to Republican efforts versus about $189,000, $8 million, sorry, to Republican efforts versus $189,000. And that's, I guess, in the last presidential race. If you go down and you look at those who've donated specifically to Donald Trump, Shahid Khan of the Jacksonville Jaguars donated $1 million. Of the New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft, big friend of Donald Trump, donated $1 million to him. The Redskins owner Dan Snyder, and on and on and on. So these are owners that are aligned with Donald Trump. How difficult do you think it has been for them to walk away from him? I mean, the league is very touchy about talking about issues regarding the way that they behave toward the players. How touchy do you think they are about having Donald Trump on the other side of them?
Well, first of all, I want to compliment Coach Sherman, because I agree 100% with what he says. I mean, people have the right to do what they individually want to do. Let me put it in this context. This is a billion-dollar business, multi-billion-dollar NFL business with multi-million-dollar athletes. They are the best of the best. There is no intimidating a professional athlete. Is the only time I've ever seen one intimidate is when his agent is dealing with the legal counsels of these teams. So they've got the right to do that. The owners have the right to give the money wherever they want to, just like Hollywood has the right to give it to the other side. I don't think there's any confusion there. These owners love their players. There's an affection with them, their teams. And this is a sport. So I don't think Donald Trump, when he is standing up for the flag and standing up for the right to do this and trying to put his personal opinion into the NFL, is a smart political move. I hadn't seen that much damage from it in the polling. I would also I'll always tell politicians that I work for and with that if you try to compete with any type of sport, you will probably lose in that venue, because it is the national pastime of all Americans. So again, another thing we'll probably move past. The players can do what they need to do, and Donald Trump's going to continue to probably, I think, catch the high ground on this with the poll numbers, because he's standing up for the flag, standing up for the first responders. At least we're having a conversation about what originally started this, which was racial profiling, police brutality, and then at the same time, I guarantee you these players are standing up for all of the above, too. So,
well,
again,
Pam,
congratulations.
But are we?
Yeah, that's the question, Pam. That's the question, are we? Pam, I'll give you the last word on that.
Are we? I don't think that people are paying attention to the why. I think if people took a minute just to try to understand what the bottom line is for these players. I've seen maybe one or two white players just go over to the guy who's kneeling, not necessarily kneel themselves, but to go over to the guy. I think people are trying to understand, but I think it's a very, very small percentage. This goes back to Colin Kaepernick and some of the police shootings that were going on around the country, and this guy can't get a job. Now, I've seen with my own two eyes quarterbacks who are far worse, that are bad quarterbacks, but they have jobs, and Colin does not, because he did something that people felt was disrespectful. And without really trying to understand, well, what this guy has risked everything, and he's lost his professional career unless somebody stands up and does the right thing. But this is definitely about race, no matter what the White House says. I just think it's to a point now. I just wish people would try to put themselves in the shoes of these players, because they're risking a lot with their endorsements, with public opinion, but it's obviously important enough for them to go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, indeed. I think that is an appropriate last word. Thank you, Pam Oliver, Jason Johnson, Ray Sherman, and Caton Dawson. Appreciate you guys. Now, you know, if it's AM Joy, we've got to talk about the latest developments in Russiagate, and we'll do that after the break. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.